mild-mannered reporter for the newspaper.
And Patrick Wheeler.
I'm a very dangerous man.
This is the Afternoon Sports Drive on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network.
That's what I'm talking about.
You ain't never heard nothing like this. Let me work, show me where the mic is. I'm on stage, black shirt, and my Timbs. You know how I do it, I ain't playing with you, I've been grinding. Anybody trying to sleep on me, better do something with your eyelids. I hear a lot of whining, but I don't hear a lot of rhyming. Whoa. Everybody got opinions, let it go into my ear, then I block that. Put me on stage.
Welcome into the Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network.
What are y'all doing?
Patrick Wheeler with you on Mondays. We come back in after a good weekend. Hope everybody had a fantastic weekend. You're in the right spot here to round out your work day or whatever else you got going on. I guess technically it is still the summer. Doesn't feel like a summer, but it is. Maybe not work or whatever you got going on. It's funny. I talked to a couple people over the weekend that still had some summer school going on with different places they were at, and I was like, it just sounds weird, you know? I don't think of people actually still having classes going on and things like that and being able to still do things like that online with everything, but I promise you, the world's still going on out there, and it is in the sports world too, which we're going to get to here. A ton of stuff to get to on a Monday. As a sports guy, you always wonder during the summer, how much you're going to have to talk about after a weekend in the summer when there's not a lot of sports going on top of a hiatus going on. But I'm telling you what, there's plenty. OSU, we're going to talk a little bit about them with their defense has been bolstered for the upcoming year, or upcoming season next year, I should say, but also this year with a couple more preseason award watch list honorees. We'll talk about all of that. Also, I'm going to explain later on in the show why sports are going to come back. Major sports are coming back very soon, but college as well. We're going to talk about all that because it is going to happen. Very, very confident in that. Also, a ton of NFL stuff to get to. We'll get on to that probably later on in hour number 2. But first, start off with the first news coming out of Oklahoma State. We just continue to get players named to these preseason award watch lists. Eamon Ogbongbemiga and Malcolm Rodriguez both named to the Butkus Award watch list, top linebacker in the country. There are only 6 teams in all of college football that have 2 players on that list. So pretty prestigious right there. You know, it dawned on me. Come in and I hear the name Malcolm Rodriguez. So that sounds pretty familiar. I thought, where have I heard that name? Where have I heard that name in sports before? Well, back in my freshman year of college, I'm covering the Miami War Dogs football team, high school football team. We go on down to Wagner, and Malcolm Rodriguez is down there playing quarterback and linebacker, and he is just dominating the Miami War Dogs. I bet it called his name doing play-by-play that game. I bet it called his name 100-plus times. He did everything. And it was funny because I was reading up on Malcolm, and I thought, could have sworn he was a quarterback in high school. And look at his recruiting, and yeah, he came out of high school as a dual-threat quarterback. And I said, that's the guy. I remember him out of the entire season that I did there for Miami. He is one of the lone names that really sticks out to me because of how athletic this dude was on both sides of the ball. He dominated. So I was happy to put that together, but also just for the remembrance of how he was on defense as well. I mean, the dude wreaks havoc. He did in high school, has so far at Oklahoma State, and well-deserved to be put on this list with Eamon Ogbongbemiga. I'm telling you what, I really think that Jim Knowles and this defense have potential to. When we look at Oklahoma State, we talk about their offense all the time, right? 3 players, the 3-headed monster, Spencer Sanders and Tylan Wallace and Chuba Hubbard, and we can go on from there. But this defense, I think, can be really special. And I think, look, this entire team, man, and this comes from someone who's still coming into Oklahoma State, learning as much about them as possible, and coming and learning more. I've known their football team, but learning more about them. And guess what? I think I have somewhat of a unique perspective with that. They have I think they're really. I don't even know if dark horse is the right way to describe them, because as we talked about, they got the number 2 spot on the preseason Big 12 list, and you know what? I think that's well deserved. That's the thing this year is they have so much to prove. When you look at teams that have a lot to prove in the past, they can typically find success in some places that some people may not have thought, and I think that's the case for OSU football this year. With everything that went on, not to mention everything that's still going on with the coronavirus and all that, you put all that together, you mix it up, you put in the talent that OSU has, and you say, go after it. And this team could do something special this year in a pretty unprecedented time, in a pretty unique situation. They could make the best out of it. And I'm excited to watch this team. Wherever it will be from or how, they will be fun to watch. And that's going to be nationwide. You're going to open the eyes quickly of some people across the country, say this OSU team is not to be messed with. Now, we all know the pressures of a college football season. This could hinder a lot on week 1, too. We still don't know who OSU's week 1 opponent is. And you know what? I'm going to have to come on. And so I'd say my confidence level of Alabama being the opponent for OSU to start the season was probably at like a 20%, and that was being generous. After hearing more reports today, it's probably at a 3%. It's not going to happen. I say this because Alabama first they were in talks. There was this rumor Notre Dame was going to play Alabama. And then they came out and squashed that rumor. Well, then it's all of a sudden BYU is going to play Alabama. That's the new rumor. And BYU is one of the teams that's also been lobbied for an Oklahoma State opener. Again, I've said this. I think other people have too, and I'll echo it. But Alabama doesn't want to play Oklahoma State to open the season. You know, we all talk about, well, maybe Oklahoma State doesn't want to play the Crimson Tide. No. Alabama doesn't want to play Oklahoma State to open the season. They also don't need any type of chance to lose an opening game of the year. Could you imagine Alabama coming in, start the season, they play Oklahoma State finds a way to beat them, and Alabama loses the opening game of the year? After last year, what happened to Alabama? You really think that's we got to throw all those in there, all those different factors in there, and it's just not in the cards. Now, it was a fun thought. It was a fun idea to talk about. Again, it's not 100% out of the cards impossible, but I'm telling you, don't get the hopes up too much. As fun as it would be, don't get the hopes up too much. So Eamon Abambamiga and Malcolm Rodriguez both being named to the Butkus Award watch list. On top of that, Colby Harvell-Peel named to the Jim Thorpe list. I'm telling you, Jim Knowles has some serious weapons at his disposal this year. Some serious weapons on the defensive side of the ball. This team, I think, is well structured. You look at all of the really important positions in football, and they've got them covered on this OSU team. I think they're going to be dangerous. A real threat in the Big 12, a real threat in the national landscape. On top of that, a 4-star defensive tackle, Aiden Kelly, he finally committed to Oklahoma State yesterday morning. He comes out of Thomas, Oklahoma. The number 12 defensive tackle in that 2021 class, and he's the top 200 overall player in the country, sitting at 183. That's commit number 12 for the 2021 class for the Cowboys. I'm telling you, 4-star defensive tackle, this dude is not to be messed with. A huge get for Oklahoma State. I think he turned down, TCU, I think was one of the teams he turned down. Maybe Arkansas was one of them too, but got to give credit. He sees what this defense is going to be this year. You see some of the names on there. He sees 2 guys that preseason just made the Butkus watch list. Yeah, that's definitely a plus when it comes to recruiting defensive players. I think they're going to be scary. Really do. Really, really do. Oklahoma State has a shot this year to make something happen, but I'm telling you, it all is going to depend on who they got week 1. If they can maintain this non-conference schedule, which we hope they can because it's a cakewalk the rest of the way, and then jumping into Big 12 play really early. On top of all that, we are continuing to see huge positive news in regards to players in college football and college athletics testing with the coronavirus. I'm seeing it all over the place. A lot of low numbers, and that's big time. That's big time. There's a lot of people out there, even today, and will continue until college football actually begins, lobbying for the idea, we can't have college football, it's not safe, we just can't do it. And then when you ask them, well, it's just not safe. Well, what do you mean it's not safe? Well, because the coronavirus is not safe to these guys, these kids. Okay, well, we've already looked through plenty of that to know that's not necessarily the case, but this is important right here. Now, I'm not just saying this because it's a Big 12 team. I'm saying this because Oklahoma's been willing to release numbers pretty consistently with their coronavirus tests, and why wouldn't they with this number? 100 student athletes tested at OU, 1 positive out of those 100 athletes. And even better than that, how about another school? Notre Dame has tested 356 total student athletes so far. Anyone want to take a shout-out number? How many positive tests out of those 356? 2. 2 positives. That's incredible. I mean, hats off to those universities doing a great job. Really. Just got the update, too, about Iowa. Iowa has tested 70 student athletes through July 19th. Only 1 positive test. Only 1 positive test. They've had 513 student athletes, coaches, staff, all that tested. They've only come up with 26 positive tests. So remember there was that talk, and we talked about it too. You know, some of these college athletes, they might not be able to discipline themselves. We're going to see a rise in cases amongst schools because some of these student athletes will be, not taking the precautions they should to avoid this thing. Well, if ever a lot of people needed to be proved wrong on something, it may be this. And I'd be one of them, because I expressed some doubt in some of these guys. But I'm telling you, if these numbers continue to stay like they are, we're seeing a lot of guys that want to take this serious and want to play college football. That's it. And they're doing a great job of it so far. Really, hats off to OU, Notre Dame, Iowa. Get all these numbers. And there's some schools that won't release them, which is fine. They don't have to. But I think we do need to hop on that train, and I'm definitely going to hop on that train. I've been on it for a while, of another sign pointing towards we're going to have college football. We're going to have college football, especially in the 2 conferences that matter. And that's the SEC and the Big 12. That was their stance from the beginning. It continues to be their stance today. As far as today. Big 12 Commissioner Bob Bowlesby was on Robert Allen's show earlier today. He had a good interview. Some good nuggets coming from that. Nothing groundbreaking, but a lot of good information. I'm telling you, I'm going to talk more about it when we come back, but I'm telling you, he has the right mindset. Greg Sankey has the right mindset in the SEC, and I got to give a shout-out to the ACC. Because I'm sure everyone remembers when the Pac-12 and the Big Ten came down with that news that we're not doing any non-conference games. Well, everybody said the ACC was next. That was the report immediately. The ACC might as well be included because they're next. Well, they've also held out pretty well with this. Now, would I be surprised to find out in the next few days, even the next week or whatever, that they choose to go the no non-conference route? No. But at least from this standpoint and this time, it looks like they're waiting. And that's something I didn't believe the ACC was going to do. And they're doing it. So huge credit to them as well. Because that's the name of the game right now. Staying patient. I know. It's almost August. Oh, man. But we are seeing so much change. So much change that it is, in my mind, irresponsible. 100% irresponsible to make a decision as big as canceling some games. Or as big as moving some games. That's the best way I can put it, is straight irresponsible. And I think if you were to sit down Bob Bowlesby, to sit down Greg Sankey, and say, guess what? We want to know. We want to know your true mindset, your true belief with these other Power 5 conferences here, the Big 12, Pac-10. What are they? Well, they probably say they're not making the right decisions, or they probably say they didn't wait long enough, they weren't patient enough. I mean, if you got dead straight answers from them, that's what it would be. because they want to play this as PC as possible. I get it. They want to make sure they don't get that label that they don't care about their student athletes or their staff. I get it. But they're also towing that line and not afraid to jump over it, which is important. That doesn't happen a lot anymore. But the Big 12 and the SEC, and so far the ACC, have stood their ground and should be applauded for it. Should be recognized for it in a time where everyone else is folding, because that's what they're doing. They're folding. They refuse to be wavered. I said this when I was on Robert's show a couple weeks ago, that I really sincerely hoped that the Big 12 and the SEC would not jump on this train, and they would hold off, and they would be patient. Well, guess what? So far, so good. Now, things could change, but so far, so good, and I've got confidence. When we come back, I'll talk about a couple of things that Bob Bowlesby said today that stood out to me. Later on in the show, I checked out another TCL game this past weekend. The Tulsa Drillers watched some OSU kids play some ball. I'm going to tell you what. I'm going to tell you how the TCL might actually be the precursor to having sports come back at all levels. All that still to come in the afternoon sports drive. Next.
Well, I'm not trying to get in the way. Minding my own, got nothing to say about nobody. That's right, nobody. Don't shake my tree, don't rattle my cage. You and me will be on the same page. Got no trouble, don't make no trouble. Yeah, you best let us sleep in high. Cause soon you come to understand why. Hey, you're gonna get bit right between the eyes.
Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler with you on this Monday. Jason Elmquist will be back tomorrow. A little blackberry smoke there for your Monday. Encourage you to check them out if you haven't heard. They are fantastic. So Bob Bowlesby was on Robert Allen and Friends show today, and there's some things I took away. I mean, again, it wasn't anything that was like breaking news or anything like that, or, you know, will we have a football season, all that. But he did talk about the path the Big 12 has taken during all of this, and, you know, who they're listening to and why they're listening and all this. And, you know, it was good, again, just to hear it from the horse's mouth, right? To hear it from Bob Bowlesby. You can write about it, you can talk about it, you can speculate, but when you actually get the guy that's there at the top, well, that's where you want to hear it from. We got a chance to do that today. The entire interview is on the Triple Play Sports Radio YouTube page, by the way. In case you missed it, feel free to go check it out. About 20 minutes long. A lot of good stuff in there. So he said to Robert that he has an infection control expert. That is one of the main guys they're listening to, rightfully so, right, in this time. And they're being told by him to wait and stay patient. That was the advice. You know, it wasn't, well, this isn't looking good, we're going to have to shut down. And this was even amidst a bunch of states with rising in numbers and cases. You know, there's still been, that to me was the encouraging part. That the information given to him is still, let's wait. We don't need to make any decisions. Please wait on your big decisions. And he said that. He made sure that was the point. So it brought up the question to me. He brought up the idea to me. The Pac-12 and the Big Ten also claim to have medical experts, infection experts talking to them and advising them as well. So was their advice to them was, look, we can't do these non-conference games? Was the advice to them not, well, we better wait and then before we make big decisions, we're still in July, let's wait? Or was it, we just can't do it? Was there really this huge discrepancy amongst advisors? Or did the Pac-12 and the Big Ten really just panic? Because I think it was as simple as that. They just panicked. made huge decisions, and panicked. So the Big 12 comes in, Bob Bowlesby says, look, I'm getting advice to wait, and I'm going to. The SEC says the same thing. We're gonna hold on. He said one of the lines that stuck out to me was, he said, the best leadership is to be patient and not act in haste. Let me say that again. The best leadership is to be patient and not act in haste. That quote probably should be one of those that you see 30 years in the future that, you know, some musical artist puts on his Instagram caption for his next photo. It's that good. And, I mean, how true is that statement? Sometimes those of us that are in power, those of us that are in leadership roles, feel like we have to be the one quickly making decisions. And while I'll agree that those people have to be able to make decisions on a moment's notice, the ability to balance patience amongst big decisions results in positive outcomes. And I think that's the case here. That's why that quote right there that he said stood out to me. Because it's true on any level. You're the leader of your own life. Think about it in your personal life. How many times have you sat down before a big decision? Did you quickly make that decision? Also probably a decision that could affect a lot of people at some point, right? We've all been there. Did you quickly jump on that when you had time to spare? Or did you wait it out? Because that's what's happening. We're seeing it on a grand scale. And so far, it's being done well. One of the other topics brought up, I mean, Robert's with me on this. He talked about, look, we've been hearing all this stuff about possibly moving the football season to the spring, and that's for some reason such a good idea to some people. And Bob's like, you know what? I'm going to say it again. It's our last resort. It has been this entire time. It hasn't changed. You know, that is that is plan Z. Probably even further than that. And his main reason was, which is the one that a lot of people have brought up at this point, who says things are going to be better in the spring? Do we not remember this spring when the coronavirus was in full effect? And we all stayed in our houses? So what is this talk about how things are going to be so much better in the spring? Where does that data base off of? Am I missing the that we're going to have some vaccine available by then that actually works? I mean, where is this all coming from? I think something I took away from Bob and everything he said and what he's done this entire time is that not only has the Big 12 Conference waited, but they have learned to adapt. That's what human beings do. They have learned to adapt with this thing and are still learning. And I'm proud as hell of them for sure. Let's go to the phone line. You're on the Afternoon Sports Drive. Go ahead.
Hey, Emmert said Friday that it's not trending in the right way. Is he speaking for the SEC and the Big 12?
Mark Emmert is one of those guys that this whole time has hidden in his hidey hole and has decided to pop up at one or two random times during all this. And what he has told us is stuff that we don't know. So if you were to ask the SEC and the Big, or stuff that we do know, I should say, if you were to ask the Big 12 and the SEC, they'd be like, look, we don't really care what he's saying right now. Well, literally, if you look at, just like you said, all he said was things aren't trending in the right direction. Like, okay, yeah, cases are trending in the right direction, yet deaths are still relatively the same with the coronavirus, okay? And on top of that, he says, well, you know, we need to have these things in place where you got to have a mask, you got to social distance. Like, we know that too. So I bet if you were to ask the Big 12 and the SEC, they'd be like, we're kind of doing our own thing over here.
Okay, I agree with that answer. Let me ask you this. Feinbaum said Friday he thought Emmert should be fired. There's a guy that's making $2 to $3 million a year.
Yep.
Now, we all have our own agendas. Is Feinbaum trying to bankrupt the mid-majors, and he knows that the Power Fives would probably be, because he's on record as saying, Feinbaum, I heard him say himself, that he hasn't heard a good reason yet to play college football this year. So between Feinbaum and Emmert and what the Big 12 and the SEC's doing, what do you think Feinbaum's agenda is? Do you think that, like I said, he's trying to get the mid-majors out of college football? Because I don't know that they'll survive a whole year without football. But Feinbaum was calling last Friday for Emmert's firing. What's your take on that? And I'll hang up and listen. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for the phone call. Appreciate it. No, that's a good question because, yeah, I listened to the Feinbaum interview of him calling out Emmert, saying he should be fired. I think Paul Feinbaum right now his agenda is to stay relevant during a time where the main topic in college football has shifted. Well, at one time was, it still is, are we going to have a season? And that has been driven so far into the ground by everyone that people are just tired of that conversation. And then the next thing it shifted to was, well, who's going to cancel? Or how many positive tests do we have over here? And people like myself as well are like, okay. Like you get the report from Clemson and K-State, and they made it into this huge deal because of the number of cases. But all of them have recovered, and most of them were asymptomatic. These guys didn't know they had it, and they blew it up like it was this huge deal that we can't have college football because we have large numbers of positive cases at some schools. But yet, OU, Notre Dame, as I mentioned at the top, is kicking the coronavirus in the butt, and you're going to have to dig to find some of that information. So I think, I respect Paul Feinbaum just because he's been around for so long and has been successful for so long at what he does. Talks SEC football all the time, right? That's his job at ESPN. He's the guy to go to for SEC football talk and news and all that. But I think part of his agenda now is to stay relevant. And I think also because if you look back at the reason I say that, one of the other comments he made earlier on in the year, where he brought up the idea and the thought of, well, I think he claimed that college football is full, I'm paraphrasing here, but full of corruptness and cheating and scandal and all that. And said, would it really be a shock if some coaches lied about who tested positive on their team? He brought that argument up. And people were like, what? Who said that? And they go, oh, Paul Feinbaum. And some people go, who's Paul Feinbaum? Well, now they know. So I think part of his agenda is to stay relevant during a time where his topic that he covers solely has been doldrummed into two really boring topics as far as I'm concerned now. Because I'm telling you what, talking about having or not having a college football season is driving me insane. I'm at to that point where I know it's relevant, but my goodness, we can only say so much every single day about it, and he's in the same boat. So I think that's part of it. Now, as far as him calling out Mark Emmert, I am in agreement with what he said. Because what has Mark Emmert done? That's what I said to the caller there at the beginning. What has he done this whole time? NCAA president, but what has he come out and said that has been helpful? I just went through that whole speech about leadership, but he has failed at leadership this entire time. If you listen to the show Friday, Jason and I, we ripped him about it, and it was well-deserved. Because literally, just like Feinbaum said, and I've said, all he did was come out and say, hey, this thing is not good. The coronavirus is bad. Cases are up. Please wear a mask and social distance. And all of us with functioning brains are sitting out here like, really? You don't say. So yeah, a time where the NCAA needs leadership more than ever, and college sports need leadership more than ever, their leader has failed. What's one of the main ways you can fail as a leader? It's by not coming out and saying anything or doing anything. It's by hiding. And that's what he's done. That's why I love the argument that college football, for instance, needs a commissioner. They need a central leadership, an actual central leadership. Because even if that central leadership were to make a decision they liked or didn't like, well, hell, at least he's making a decision. And that's a step up from what Mark Emmert has done this entire time. So I get Paul Feinbaum's issue there. But I also see why he's trying to make sure people remember who he is during this time. Because here's the thing. Have there been people, and still are, and still will be, that actively seek out different opinions about whether we're going to have a season or not? Sure. Now, would it make Paul Feinbaum a huge hit to the media, a huge fan to the media, if he said, hey, we're going to have a season? Of course we are. It's college football. No. They do just like they would to everybody else, and Paul Feinbaum's a big enough name where they'd say, dude doesn't care. All he wants is football. Because you know why? Football pays his paycheck. Football puts money on his, or puts food on his table. Well, yeah, it does for a lot of people. People realize how many jobs will be lost if there's not a college football season? I mean, people in sports media will be wiped out. That's their livelihoods. But this is a time where somebody like him, with a voice as big as he has, a platform as big as he has, to speak what he really believes. Because like that caller said, he said that didn't see a way there could be football at one point, I believe is what he said. Well, if that's the truth, how is that, even if that's what you believe, how is that opinion going to help you gain relevancy, maintain relevancy? It's not. Everybody has that opinion. Oh, this guy over here said we're not going to have a college football season. Join the club, buddy. Everybody has said that. All of a sudden, the ones that like me over here saying that we're going to have a college football season, it's like the minority group. Well, you can't say that. Why would you say we're going to have a college football season? That's just irresponsible. Why would you say that? That's just insensitive. I guess I missed when rooting for sports to come back became insensitive. But it also brings up a good point. I think that people like Paul Feinbaum in the sports media are in a tough position right now. All over the country. Because guess what? If you got a lie detector test on these guys and you ask them, hey, we're going to have college football, do you want to have college football? They say, yeah, of course I do. I want to have college football. I want to see it happen. The season's going to happen. But if you go to pretty much any major sports outlet you can find, what you're going to see is we can't have college football. It's too dangerous. Even though there's nothing to back that up. And it's unfortunate. But that is the popular opinion amongst all these sports guys. So back to where we started with this segment here to round it out. I appreciate that call, though. I think that was a good point. Look, Bob Bowlesby, he's one of the few leaders we have left in college football. I'll say that. You know, he's found a way to balance out, because he does care. He cares about the players, and he cares about everybody else involved in their health and all that, as he should. But he's also recognized from the beginning the importance, for a lot of reasons, of having football. And his goal the entire time as the Big 12 commissioner has been to have football. I'm not sure it ever honestly once crossed his mind that there would actually be no football. I really think that for one thing, he's probably tried to avoid those thoughts. He's probably had to have a couple of them at times just for, all options are on the table. But let's be honest, I don't really doubt if he ever considered that an option. Like many of us. I've never actually considered not having a college football season an option, personally. Never have considered that this entire time. Considered adjustments to it regarding fans and everything else, but not having a season really hasn't even crossed my mind, because guess what? It's not going to happen. When we come back, I'm going to tell you why the TCL, Texas Collegiate League, and the Tulsa Drillers baseball team that houses some Oklahoma State players is a template for getting sports everywhere back. That's next.
It's been a too long time with no peace of mind. I'm ready for the times to get better. I've got to tell you, I've been racking my brain, hoping to find a way out.
I've had enough of this continual rain. Changes are coming, no doubt. It's been a too long time with no peace of mind. And I'm
Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network with Patrick Wheeler. Everybody's having a fantastic Monday so far. What about you guys? I hope you're enjoying it indoors, okay? There's people like me that are, they get those shocked looks from people like, what do you mean you don't like the summer? I'm not a heat guy. Not a heat guy. I like staying cool. Sorry. Yeah, I used to play sports in the heat and did all that stuff, and it was good and fine, but I hated the heat. Much rather be chilling inside, doing my thing, whatever. As I'm sure some of you would be. Another one of those unpopular opinions. All right, I'm going to tell you why I think the Texas Collegiate League could possibly be a template for sports returning. Wynn checked out another game this past weekend. Again, I gotta say, One Oak has done a fantastic job. The TCL has really knocked it out of the park, pun intended. And I think so far, what we're seeing is that, and it may be, I get it, it's on a smaller level. That's what the counter argument is. So I've already made it, so don't feel like you have to make it. It's on a smaller level. But it is proving that sports can happen during this time. It's possible. And the best part about it is we haven't seen really any issues arise with all this. Right? There's multiple teams. There's travel going on. Different guys in different locations. But we haven't seen anything flare up with this. And again, but Patrick, there's only a few teams. There's not a lot of teams. There's not as many players as. But guess what? We got to start somewhere, don't we? This is a great place to start. And I'm telling you, the TCL deserves some credit. First, let me actually report a score. How about that? Before I tell you why. So last night, the Drillers sweep the Texarkana Twins. They won 11-0. It was a spanking of the Twins. Max Hewitt for Oklahoma State dominated at the plate, 3 for 5, 3 singles, 2 RBIs. He and one of the other guys, who I forgot his name now, but they combined for like half the hits. Drillers had their longest win streak so far this season at 4 with that sweep, and it was also their first sweep of the year, and they're now tied for first place in that North Division with Amarillo. Those top 2 teams in each division make the postseason, so that's why that's important. And I'll tell you what, they won the night I was there too. I'm 2-0, by the way, in the games I've been to. Not to brag, because I never brag about myself, but I'm 2-0. And the display was fantastic. I mean, the talent is good all the way through. It's good baseball. It's not this cheap, crappy baseball. You get a big-time bang for your buck there, and you're not paying a lot to even get in. So you're really getting a heck of a deal. But why, people get to the topic, why do you think? Well, here's why I think it's going to be a template. Tulsa also just recently passed their mask ordinance. Okay, that's the first part of it. You go to Tulsa Drillers' website and they say mask is required upon entry. And then it's also required when you walk around the concourse. Not required when you're sitting down with your immediate family. But here's the thing, okay? And this is why we're going to get away with having fans at some places, is because of this reason. They put that out there and they say that, but it's really, really, really not that enforced, okay? It's not. Because there were people walking in, plenty of them, that got through the gates, didn't have a mask on. So guess what? Did they get kicked out? No. They had a ticket, they paid for it, they got in. There were people, plenty of them, walking around the concourse. No mask on. Nobody said anything. And that's what I think is going to happen at some of these universities. Okay? Now, it may be a little bit more enforced because we're going to have more people. Again, I know there's only 2,000 people, but it's going to be somewhat of the same. You might have some guys whose job used to be usher or whatever else they do at stadiums, and you switch them over and say, guess what? Your new job is mask enforcement. We're going to give you a shirt that says security or something like that, or official employee or whatever, so people can recognize you. And your job is to say to people who aren't wearing masks, put your mask on or leave. That's doable, right? That's an adjustment that can be made. And here's the thing. I think if there were people at the Drillers games that were coming up to guys and saying that, hey, you got to get your mask on or leave, I think they would have put their mask on. You're always going to run into the occasional issue, but it's not like it can't be handled. But I'm telling you what, when universities realize that they can at least bring some people in, they can bring some fans in, they can keep some people's jobs alive, by the way, too, at concession stands or what have you, mask enforcers, they're going to do that. And what I saw at the Drillers game was kind of gave me a precursor idea for how things might work this season. One was because of the limited number of fans. Like, that's going to be the case. We're not going to see any packed out stadiums. We are going to see some fans at stadiums. So with that being the case, you take your mask, you put it on, you walk through the gate with it on, and look, who's to say that they're not going to say the rule is you can't have it off when you sit down? If we have 20,000 people in a stadium and you are pretty much social distance that way anyways, I'm going to guess the rule is you can have your mask off when you're sitting down. As long as you are technically with who you came in with and hoping that's your immediate family. There's no way to prove that, but you're probably going to be able to cheer without your mask on. Because we've also talked about this a lot. People are going to be like, well, you know, what if someone comes out and wants to sue the university because they think they got coronavirus at the game? How are they going to prove they got coronavirus at the game? How is that going to happen? And how is that going to uphold in court? I think, really, when you think about it, when I've experienced now what it's like to be in a socially distanced crowd, I'm seeing that it's possible. Because there, again, are plenty of people that say it is impossible to have fans at some of these places. I'm telling you, that's not the case. I'm watching it be done. And the TCL has done it. On top of that, it made me think, too, all these protocols that are in place for Major League Baseball, right? I mean, these silly protocols. Can't spit, no sunflower seeds, no gum, don't lick your fingers, can't throw the ball around. Well, guess what they do in the TCL? They throw the ball around. And it goes right back to the pitcher. And he uses it again. Something that no one ever would think of in the past because it wasn't an issue. But that's one of those things that made me think of, you know what? They're also doing that. That ball's being touched by a lot of players, and guess what? We haven't seen this explosion in cases. We haven't had to shut down the league. So yes, it may be a small template, but it is a template nonetheless. And it needs to be taken serious. It needs to be looked at more. It's going on fairly normal, people. If you haven't been to a game, I encourage it. If you want to see live sports, I encourage it. There's been all this talk now, too, about people have talked college. Well, what about high school sports? I think this is a great start, great canvas to look at for high school sports. We all know there's less fans at high school games anyways, right? Absolutely no reason why you couldn't have high school sports. Especially baseball. It's 100% doable. And I'm glad that so close to home, it's doable. You know, we're proving that here in Oklahoma. And they're proving that across a bunch of other states. I know that all across the Midwest, we've had Little League games going on. We have had travel teams playing ball. Fans have been in attendance. But guess what? It's working. And it's going to work at the higher levels. I'm confident of that. I think the TCL has set the stage. Definitely for baseball. But universities need to look at this too. Say, hey, look, they've even got guys walking around that don't have the mask on. It's not like it's really being enforced, but nothing's happened so far. Now, again, like everything, things could change, but I'm pretty dang confident right now. I'm feeling good about sports coming back. And they are coming back in a hurry. Hour number 2, we'll be talking a lot about that. Major League Baseball starts in, 3 days? 3 days! On the 24th, everybody will be playing. I cannot wait. I'm going to have scores to talk about. But in hour number 2, I'm going to tell you about Major League Baseball. Had some exhibition games going on over the weekend, and I'm going to tell you what I did and didn't like about that. Also, to start off hour number 2, when I come back, I'm going to give you the main new reason why I'm really glad I don't live in California. That's next.
I don't wanna wait for our life to be over. You have it, but you take it how you left it. This is give and take. Take your side, take me under. I wanna know, but you showed me what I'm missing. In the plane out of Southern California, running in the streets out there. Some of us just gotta learn the hard way. Don't give a damn, nobody gotta say we selling now. I don't wanna wait.
Hour number 2, afternoon sports drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. 10:20 a.m., 1580 a.m., 93.1, 93.3, 105.1 FM, and the Triple Play Sports Radio app. Hey, if you haven't downloaded that app yet, what are you doing? I encourage you. It's going to be, first of all, be the best free addition to your phone or tablet or whatever you have that has apps that you'll make all week. Go do it. Takes a couple seconds. Download. You're ready to go. You can hear us wherever you are. No excuses to miss out on your favorite shows here on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Okay, hour number 2. Look, I've got a lot to get to. I talked there at the end of hour number 1, kind of how the TCL, to me, is really going to lead the way in fans returning. I want to hit one more point. Remember the week, what was it, last week? Bristol? The race at Bristol with 20,000 fans? That also seemed to go off pretty well, right? Haven't heard anything crazy coming back from Bristol because, trust me, we'd heard about it by now. You know, oh my goodness, thousands of fans testing positive for the coronavirus linked back to Bristol somehow. We were able to trace them back there. That would have been the headline. But we haven't heard that yet. So, okay, there's another event with a large amount of sports fans in one spot that has succeeded. And from the pictures I saw, it looked like masks were optional when you were sitting down. Again, that's the thing. You know, we talked about that the masks will probably be required to get into most places this year, most universities and things like that, but are they going to be really enforced, especially when you're sitting down? I don't think so. From seeing it firsthand, from seeing it at Bristol, look, then maybe that was the deterrent for some of you out there of, you know, we want to be sure that we go to games, but if I have to wear a mask, I'm not going to go. I know there were some of you out there that was the deterrent. Well, if it turns out that you don't have to wear when you're sitting down or when you're in the stands, would you still go? I bet a lot of you would, and I could see why. That's my thing with the masks, okay? First of all, that it's become a political thing is just insanely dumb. But on top of that, I'm not going to take a side. I'm not doing that. But something that has driven me up the wall with the whole mask thing is, why does everybody act so happy about it? Like, why is the new thing? We got to take selfies with them on. We got to, if we're major companies, we got to say that, this is the fun thing to do now. Let's have contests with your like, no. It's not natural to humans. Let's not act like this is some fun thing to do. It's something we all have to do, but it's not natural and it's not fun. Not afraid to say it. It's not fun. Wearing a mask is not fun. Human beings do not like having things obstruct their face. That part blows my mind. That now all of a sudden it's become this super fun thing to do. No, I'm telling you. It may be important, but I'm telling you, don't act like you are enjoying it, for crying out loud. Don't put your selfie on Twitter with your mask on saying, "This is the best time of my life." Get out of here. You're not fooling anybody. All right, back to sports. I said before the break I was going to let everybody know my new reason for being super thankful that I don't live in California. Because today, California announced that fall high school sports will be moving to the spring. All California high school sports moving to the spring. Look, to me, this is absolute insanity. People are going to be like, oh, here he goes again. But I'm telling you, the patience thing still has to be learned by a lot of people. Making this decision on July 20th that we're going to have to push fall sports into the next year. Like, here's the thing. Again, what's the reasoning behind it? Things are just supposed to be magically better in the spring, apparently. And I don't get it. I'm missing out on that part. Why I'm thankful? Because still hoping to get a chance to do the Perry games for football here this year. If I were in California and I were doing this job and I was told I'd have to wait till the spring to get a chance to call football, that would drive me nuts. I love calling football. Love it. And can you imagine being a high school player in that system? You would have to pit yourself and choose between football or baseball, right? If you're in spring or whatever else is in the spring, track and all that. Like, are we seriously going to make kids have to choose? Can you imagine being a senior? What if you're a senior and a lot of these guys are standout athletes in both sports? There's been this talk, right, about trying to, in the past few years, trying to stop kids from choosing one sport in high school. Because a lot of them do now. A lot of them really focus on one sport early in their high school careers. When, if you talk to coaches around the area, it is highly encouraged that athletes play multiple sports. Recruiters and teams love to see athletes that can excel in other sports. That is a huge plus. So the idea of limiting themselves to one sport has tried for a long time now. We've tried to eliminate that in kids' minds. But now when you literally don't give them a chance to play multiple sports, what does that say? Imagine being back in high school and having to choose between football or what other sport you play in the spring. What do? Probably choose football, right? Imagine how these high schools are going to try to adapt without having their athletes for their spring sports. It's unbelievable. The big thing that bothers me is just the timing of this. Again, I just don't think we are, as a whole, as a country, reading data the correct way and also being patient enough. We're just not being patient enough. There was some rumors that Texas was going to follow suit when it comes to high school football. Texas, the mecca of high school football, actually canceling or postponing, pushing away their season into the spring, I'm going to have to see that to believe it. But here's the thing. I say all this, and I have to tell myself all the time, stop being surprised by these things. I know a lot of people have to do that too, but stop being surprised, because nothing surprises me anymore. I mean, if Texas really did come out and they said no high school football this year, would I actually be surprised? If I'm being completely honest, probably not. I mean, would it be factual and logical to do that? No. But would I be surprised? Nah, probably not. Still holding on to the hope that Oklahoma goes through with it and we have high school sports and everything's fine and dandy and get to call football games. But I'm telling you, if I was in California, honestly, think about it too. Does this force some families to move out of California? If you have a senior, do you get out of there? Do you go to a different state? Or if you're just an athlete in general, let's say that you're a freshman coming in. Does that family move out of the state and go somewhere else? This may actually be a plus for some other states in their high school sports. There might be some families that living in California that say, that's it, that's the last straw, and they head into Oklahoma. Next thing you know, Oklahoma all of a sudden has some more stars on football teams and baseball teams and whatever. Maybe this could actually be a plus. There's a silver lining. Maybe Oklahoma might benefit from this. And other states will, but maybe Oklahoma as well. Be quite the move, but it might be worth it. Anyone who wants to relocate, well, it looks like right now, at least at this moment, Oklahoma might be a good spot. Or Missouri. Saw that Misha there, their high school athletics are planning on going through with everything as planned. Some states are actually waiting and being patient and not freaking out. It's unbelievable. On top of all this news, go across the country to the other side. And now New Jersey's Governor Phil Murphy has said that all outdoor gatherings this season have to be 500 people or less. So that would obviously, one of the main things people thought of first, well, they thought of college football, and they said, okay, so there's only going to be 500 people at Rutgers games. And that made me chuckle because I said 500 people at Rutgers games, that's really nothing different than usual. But I'll tell you right now, no one's going to come to Rutgers games. I think that was made official, but there was not going to be fans there. If that was the announcement, you think they're really going to open the gates up for 500 people? No. Same with the Jets and the Giants. Yeah, people do realize, right? Jets and the Giants playing in New Jersey. Their field's actually in New Jersey. No, the team says New York, but they sit there in New Jersey. And before people do the joke that I just did with Rutgers and say, the Jets and the Giants, they don't have fans anyway. Well, actually last year, the Jets ranked 2 and the Giants ranked 5 in overall attendance last year. I wonder how many people realize that. Those two franchises that are pretty bad ranked 2 and 5 in attendance last year. I'll tell you why, though. It's just like the Los Angeles Chargers. They're all visiting fans. They pack out those stadiums with whoever they're playing. Supporters of whoever they're playing. So there's not going to be any fans at Jets and Giants games this year. Look, I said football when I talked about fans not being present. Said football would probably be the weirdest one. It'd be the most affected. Baseball, you can squirm by. Now, postseason would be a little different. That would bother me personally, but you know what? If I got to sit there and I guess if I have to watch a home run be hit and hear some weird type of crowd noise or no noise, I'd probably try to get a little bit used to it. Wouldn't be easy, but I'd try. We'll talk about that later, actually. But football, I don't know about that. College and NFL. Changes the game. Crowd noise changes the game. So if you're living in California, if you're living in New Jersey or New York, all of a sudden it is, it's becoming a little bit more real. That's a bummer. Later on in the show, I'm going to dive in pretty deep here with all this going on Twitter. The NFL players have decided to go to Twitter to try to make a statement and a stand against the NFL. And starting off, it's not really pretty. But later on, I'll tell you why you probably don't have to panic. We're getting into the thick of things. As I said, Major League Baseball is returning very soon. NFL, players have reported back to training camps for the Chiefs and the Texans, rookies and quarterbacks. And we're getting news coming in even now, which we'll talk about, like I just said, one of the reasons that players are so upset with the league is they claim there's not a lot of information getting sent to them. Well, is that really the case? It might or it might not. Might or might not be. We'll talk about that. Another huge, important step forward for professional sports, and this one won't get mentioned much because it's hockey, but the NHL tested 2,618 players and staff, and they've had 2 positive tests. 2 positive tests out of over 2,500 plus given out. Listen to me very carefully. Sports are back. Pros and even college players now are showing that we can live and adapt with this virus. Bottom line. They're showing that it's possible across all landscapes. And I think that's a huge, huge important step forward for sports. I talked about how lower levels are getting it done. Some colleges are reporting really positive numbers, but guess what? The NHL's doing it. Major League Baseball this past week had an extremely low number as well. Now, if there's anybody who was going to take this serious, it was guys that are getting paid millions of dollars. But hey, at least we're not having to question it. If they are or not, this is clear evidence that they are. Hockey's going to start back up on August 1st. Football is around the corner. Major League Baseball is around the corner. And I guess what? College football is around the corner. I encourage you to make sure you make a conceited effort to understand where you're getting some of your college football news. Because with all the pro sports coming back, that's now the sport that's really being looked at and attacked in a way of we can't have it back. And you're really going to have to dig deep if you want to find some positive numbers. That's why I like to share them on this show. That's why I like to share that OU's got positive numbers, that Notre Dame has positive numbers. Because a lot of times you'd have to really look to try to find that. And you have to look in the right direction, too. All right, when we come back, I'm going to let you know if there's really going to be an issue between NFL players and the NFL, kind of like there was with Major League Baseball. Will we have to see that again? A lot of people are still traumatized in sports from that. Will we have to see it again? I'll tell you yes or no next.
Levitating off the blacktop. Used to struggle getting started, now I can't stop. Used to be the quiet kid in the sandbox, now it's hands up every time that your man rocks. They ought to stop me coming in again. You mad? You thought we were synonyms? Too bad that's the water you're getting in. You're too fat for the sharks that you're swimming in. From where I'm sitting, contenders are looking like fruit spinning around in the blender. Hardly a snack when I'm here looking for dinner. I eat them, delete them.
Welcome back, Afternoon Sports Drive Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler with you here on Monday. We keep it rolling. So, over the weekend, I'm going through the usual sports scroll all over social media, checking it out, what's popping over the weekend. And one thing I saw sent a little shudder down my spine. Not going to lie. Why? Because it brought up the PTSD from what happened with Major League Baseball this offseason. As we all know, it was a complete and utter mess and failure all across the board. We all know how annoying it was to watch billionaires fight millionaires and vice versa. We all know how annoying it was to watch this become a money issue during a health crisis. It was the worst. It was awful how quickly things changed over and over and over between those two sides. So I see the NFL, everything trending on Twitter. Why? Because Patrick Mahomes and Russell Wilson and Drew Brees and J.J. Watt. And you go down the list. All these players coming out with the hashtag, "We want to play." Wait a second, where have I heard that before? Oh, yeah. Remember when Major League Baseball players said, "Tell us when and where we want to play"? And remember the response? It was Rob Manfred sucking on his thumb saying, I don't know what to do now. So I got those flashbacks and I thought, oh my goodness, please tell me we're not going to go through the same thing with the NFL. I've said this let me say this to kind of prelude it. I've said this all the way through with sports and the coronavirus. You can mess with baseball. I'm already mad enough about that. You can mess with my NCAA tournament. Probably my favorite sporting event of the year. You can take it away. Fine. Still trying to get over that. You can even mess with college football to an extent. Not going to like it. Not going to like it. But if you touch the NFL and we can't have an NFL season, that's it for me. That's it. That's where I draw my line in sports. NFL, do not touch it. That's my thing. Don't touch it. So immediately my first response when I saw all these players saying we want to play, we have all these issues with the NFL and they're not telling us anything, my first response was, here we go again. And that's warranted, right? I mean, you see that and you know what happened with baseball and you say, here we go again. But then I thought to myself, look, all other sports leagues got a very clear picture of how not to do things from Major League Baseball. The NFL, the entire time during this pandemic, has benefited from time, right? They benefited from time. And this was another case of that. They got to sit back and watch the you-know-what show, just like we all did, popcorn in hand, of how the MLB mishandled things. And they got to sit there with their notepad and take notes and say, this is what you don't do, this is what you don't do, this is what you definitely don't do. And in a way, we get Major League Baseball with the commissioner. Rob Manfred found a way to dethrone Roger Goodell as the dumbest commissioner in sports. So that also helped. So they're all sitting there and they say, here's what we're going to do. We have a real shot here to make sure the NFL is not only still the top dog in the dog yard, but even bigger. Because we can make it look like we're all on the same page. We love our players, blah, blah, blah. But then the players come out and they start this, as everyone likes to call it now, this blitz against the NFL and say, look, we're about to report, but we don't know what the heck's going on. We don't know what's going on regarding testing. We don't know what's going to happen with all these other protocols. Do we just show up? Look, and the way they put it, it made it seem like no conversation happened between players and ownership. And we all know that's not true, because there has been documented conversation. So it makes me want to almost be like, okay, look, and this is me saying it to the face of the league on my favorite team, Mahomes coming out and saying, leading the charge in where we want to play. This is even me saying this with all that, with him being the one enforcing it. I just don't buy that NFL players are going to be left out to dry by the league. There's absolutely no way that the NFL would risk losing their spot as the top dog in the sports world, because they are. The NFL, and then guess who's next to them? College football. That dominate ratings, that dominate viewership everywhere, that dominate money. Those two. And the NFL sets itself apart from everybody. There's no way they were going to fumble this away. No way. One of the main issues was players want daily coronavirus testing. And look, I get that point. You're telling me the NFL can't find a way to have these guys tested daily? And it's been proven today that they can. Because I just get the update earlier that the NFL and the union have come to an agreement to start daily testing. So that's something that should have been done earlier. I'll give the players that. That should have been put in place earlier. Now, I know I just vouched for time and all this for the NFL, but the players also got to understand the NFL is trying to come together with a plan that fits everybody, right? But it's not possible. So you got to give them a little leniency if you're the players. But here's the thing that gets me about Twitter with all this. Again, we have to go to social media. We have to go to Twitter to get people to take sides. Because that's all what Twitter is. That's all it is taking sides. And the players have done that effectively. We all jumped on and said, look, let's try to make it seem like the NFL is treating us like crazy bad, like they've not talked to us about anything. Let's make that be the main point of this hashtag. Let's get the fans to jump on and say, wow, we got to get these players treated better. That was the goal. And I think it worked. There's always going to be people on Twitter that will jump on one side and, oh my gosh, these players are just not, they have no, nothing coming to them from the league. The league doesn't care. That's just not the case. That's just not the case. Now look, the NFL, when they gave out their initial protocols and then they came back with something as dumb as, well, you can do this, you can play football, but you can't swap jerseys. That's not helping anything. That's going to require some negative response, which it did from players. You're telling me I can play football, I can spit and whatever, and body fluids going wherever, but I can't swap my jersey with this guy over here because it's not safe? So things like that, that's what makes the NFL look bad, okay? A lot of times the NFL can't get out of their own way. They've been one of the sports leagues that has a tough time getting out of their own way. And that's definitely one of the issues here. Another issue that the players really wanted to address was they didn't want any preseason games this season. And look, that should be doable. Like, I've never understood, here's the thing, other than money coming into owners' pockets. Because season ticket holders also have to pay for their preseason games. You get those 2 preseason games, a little bit of money comes in before the actual season starts, and that's good for the owners and the teams. But the players, 4 preseason games is entirely too much. Heck, 2 preseason games is pretty ridiculous. So how about we go down to 1? That should make everybody happy, right? If you're the players, you got to have a little understanding here, okay? They have to look, and we said that with MLB too, because a lot of people, at first especially, wanted to jump on the player's side, not the owner's side. Well, if you're the players, you got to look at it a little bit from their side and say, why can't we meet in the middle? Let's do 1 preseason game. Starters don't have to be in if we don't want. Let's do 1 preseason game. We'll have some people on the road. And we'll get to try everything out. Because this is a trial and error situation. As much as people don't want to listen and hear that, well, guess what? It is. This is a trial and error situation for the NFL. They need to see how a game would work in these times. They need to see how protocols would be followed. And 1 preseason game should do it, right? We could get enough data from all that, all those games, to understand where we are. So players got to bend a little bit. I can't believe I'm actually, defending the league a little bit here, but they got to bend. But I doubt we really see this really big battle like we did with Major League Baseball. I think this step forward, like today, they just announced, because they did meet today, that we're going to do daily testing. Well, guess what? That's step 1. That's already about as much progress as Major League Baseball ever made. So that's definitely a step in the right direction. Now, will the NFL fold and have no preseason games? I think it's possible, but I don't see how one is that big of an issue. I remember when my guy Tyler Sullivan was on, he told me that, from what he's heard and seen, these practices between teams, these little scrimmages between teams, those are just as effective as any preseason games, or if not more. And I completely agree with that. You got practices between two teams. You can stop. You can address things. And people will go, well, but think about it. Preseason game, it's an actual in-game action. You get to see how players go and act, and they got the real clock, and they've got to adhere to the real in-game situation. No, they don't. The preseason is a joke. We all know it. In the first couple of games of the season, you get to see a couple of quarters from your starters, and that's it. And you don't see anything too important. Has anyone out there ever watched a preseason football game and saw the starting quarterback and said, that's something I didn't know? Oh, he can make that throw? Oh, this series right here is really important for what he's going to do in the upcoming season. Has anyone actually thought that before? I definitely haven't. Preseason is a joke. So I get why we need to get rid of 4 games, but to me, at least one game, especially right now in a trial and error situation, is doable. Absolutely doable. On top of this, let me say this. There are all these players tweeting and saying we want to play, and you get the story from Russell Wilson. He's concerned because his wife is pregnant and he doesn't know what's going on with all these health protocols, and you get guys citing issues or whatever. Look, I still believe that all these guys, all these players that go out there and tweet that, for instance, Patrick Mahomes, he goes out there and tweets that, and then today walks into training camp like everything's all fine. I don't think there's this issue. I don't picture Patrick Mahomes walking into the Chiefs training camp going, I'm not comfortable here. What is going on? I don't know what's going on. Like they're fine. They know what's going on. Now, I'm not going to downplay that you shouldn't be concerned if you've got some health issues or if you're near people that have health issues with the coronavirus, but come on. For all these guys really to jump on and say that it's not safe, the NFL, that's what I've preached this whole time, is that major league organizations, the MLB, the NFL, sometimes probably the NBA, the NHL apparently, are all about as safe places as you can be as anywhere. And to me, they're probably safer than be it out on your own. Just like we've made the argument with college football. You've got doctors ready. You've got medical attention ready at a moment's notice. And you are expertly taken care of. Not like you are when you're away from these facilities. Trust me, when Patrick Mahomes walks into the Chiefs training camp, he is in one of the safest spots there is. And you don't think that the face of the league isn't going to be heavily protected? There will be precautions around him like you've never seen. He's a $500 million man. So that's why I don't buy this whole, we're too scared. We don't know what's going on. We can't play until we hear something from the league. Like, the league is doing something. They are working on it. They have put some protocols in place. Now, that's the thing is I'm not picking sides with this because I can see both sides, just like I could at one point for Major League Baseball. But now I can understand why players are upset with some things and why owners are probably like, what in the world do you want us to do? We're still learning. But guess what? They do have time on their favor still. They have. And the NFL is going to go on. I have huge confidence in that. Now, we're going to see a limited number of fans, and we're going to see no fans in some places like in New York. But other than that, we're going to have an NFL season. So again, I wouldn't freak out. For those of you that are like me and had that PTSD from Major League Baseball, hold on. I don't think the NFL is going to do the same thing. They realize how much is at stake here. And look, that's the thing too. I've talked about over and over how the NFL is just dominating, right? And they have for a long time in sports. You think the NFL, even if it meant having no fans, you think that they wouldn't have a season? What would that do to the NFL brand? Especially by the time it comes around, if college football is rolling, which I expect it to be, and they see that, and they manage to not have an NFL season, what would that do to the NFL brand? People would be like, you're crazy. Because also by that point, we would have Major League Baseball finishing up, NBA would be finishing up, NHL, all these sports would be finishing up, college football will be in full swing, and the NFL is going to find a way to not have a season? What would that make them look like? They are top dog, and guess what? When you are on top, you want to stay there. You don't want to self-destruct. That's what the NFL would do if they said no season. That's why when you hear people say, I don't know if there's going to be an NFL season, like, think about what you're saying there. Think about how logical that sounds. Wrapping up the afternoon sports drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. You're here with Patrick Wheeler. Thanks for hanging out with me. It's been a great Monday so far. Hope you guys are having a great Monday. We'll be on course all week, rocking it with you here on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Jason will be back with me tomorrow. If you want to call in the final segment, feel free. 533-1020, 533-1051. All right, the NFL, we just talked about them with all their issues going on, but it looks like things are going to be cleared up. I'm pretty confident in that. Now, if I have to come on in a couple of days and say, here we go again with the NFL, well, then that's not going to be fun. But confident that's not going to be the case. Patrick Mahomes continues to be in the news. Okay, this isn't just me searching it out, as big a Chiefs fan as I am. Continues to make news. This time, it had to do with Chris Jones. We all talked about Patrick Mahomes signing that huge contract. Then we said, okay, Chris Jones has got to be next, but how will it be done? Well, we looked into the contract and said, all of a sudden, you know what, Mahomes, those 2 years, the real money, first of all, won't kick in with his contract until about 4 years in. But those 2 years he still has left on this deal, it's going to open up some room. Well, Chris Jones comes out today and he says, Patrick Mahomes texted me after he signed his deal and said, quote, I left some money on the table, end quote, for him to sign that deal. People are going to say, wait a minute. Patrick Mahomes signed a $500 million deal and he left some on the table for Chris Jones to be signed? Look, I think that's absolutely the truth. This dude could have been paid any number. He really could have been paid any number. But think about what he did. By signing an extension through 10 years and not signing a 3 to 4 year deal multiple times and just resetting the market from there. He goes ahead, does the 10 years, knows the money will kick in later big time, and allows somebody like Chris Jones to get his money, which he did. I think bottom line, this tells me he wants his teammates to win. It's not just all about him, which it easily could be. I mean, being 24 in the face of the league, you could make it all about you and no one would really say anything. People would probably understand it. But leaving some of his money on the table that he could have got, okay, because he probably could have got more. I mean, that's not me just saying that. That is the truth. Estimation that he probably could have got more money. But allowed that to happen to where Chris Jones could be the guy to make sure he gets his. That's leadership. That is big time. There's reasons why people say, before it's all said and done, he has a shot to be the greatest to ever do it. And it's not just his on the field stuff. It's not just his on the field numbers and his ability. It's stuff like this. I mean, what other players are going to do something like that? He wants his guys to win. And I think we're seeing a new template for other teams later on down the road. For instance, when the Chiefs are able to get a couple of guys that are willing to restructure contracts just to stay with the team, when they're able to get a once-in-a-lifetime quarterback that says, I'm willing to take a little bit less money here to make sure my defensive star gets signed, you don't think other teams are looking at this and saying, wow, I mean, that's the type of culture we want? Because guess what? That is a team culture. It is very, very easy to be selfish in pro sports. Heck, half the time it's expected. But it's very easy to be selfish in pro sports. This would have been one of those cases where everyone would have got it. I mean, I would have got it. Understood why. If Patrick Mahomes took more money and you don't sign Chris Jones, I mean, I get it. Got to sign him first and get him what he's worth because he is worth it. But there's no selfishness here. And that's why there's a real shot to embed this dynasty. It's not just the talent. It's that these guys stand for each other. You know, we see it preached all the time in pro sports and the NFL too, especially. You know, locker room camaraderie. Everybody getting along. Everybody playing for one another. Yeah, it's all fine and fun to say. But how many times in situations where players are down, teams are down, do you see things escalate on the sidelines? Players yelling at each other. Players getting in the face of their coaches. Happens all the time. Or vice versa. Do we ever see that with Kansas City? I don't think so. When it was 24-0 Houston, did Patrick Mahomes go over to the sideline and say, DeMarcus Robinson, you suck. Quit dropping the ball. Travis Kelce, what in the world, you suck. Quit dropping the ball. Tyreek Hill, catch a punt. Did we see any of that? No. We saw, come on, guys, we got this. We're still in this thing. You know who I am? We're in this thing. And that's different. When I say that Patrick Mahomes is different, I can count multiple different ways why he is different. And that's one of them. He's a born leader. Period. Now, I am also starting to see the trend of what happens when you do become the new face of the NFL. Because this happened with Tom Brady, too. There's always going to be... Now, the fact that Tom Brady was on the Patriots didn't help. But there's always going to be this group of people that make it their life's work to go out and make sure they know, those people know that they hate you. Players know that they hate you. There's always going to be that group of people that go out and hate on guys that have the opportunity to be the best at what they do. That's just natural. But I'm already starting to see it. And that's with Tom Brady still in the league. You know, Patrick Mahomes could become the greatest to do it. He could. We all know Tom Brady's the best to ever do it. But I am seeing that a little bit already. And I'll tell you how. Number one, and this is one thing that drove me crazy about Tom Brady at times, but LeBron James still drives me nuts. Lamar Jackson, it drives me crazy. Odell Beckham Jr. drives me insane. Because ESPN and Bleacher Report and all these big names have now adopted Patrick Mahomes as the next guy to give all the coverage to. And there's going to be people like me that were really annoyed with that. For instance, he, over the weekend, is working out and he does this behind-the-back throw, okay? Heck yeah, it's impressive. Threw the football behind the back and somehow threw it forward down the field. And accurate. But it popped up on my phone. Bleacher Report and ESPN made this big deal about it, put a video out there and said, look at this. And you know what it reminded me of? Man, I've got a lot of updates of LeBron James doing stuff like that. I've had a lot of updates of Odell Beckham Jr. doing stuff like that and it making news. Well, Patrick Mahomes is the next guy. And that comes with a lot of hate. Now, I'm not saying I hate on LeBron James and Lamar Jackson and OBJ and all this, but I do get a little tired of the constant, oh my gosh, LeBron James just ate a taco. Here's a video. Oh my gosh, Odell Beckham Jr. just bought a new watch. Here's a video. I'm afraid that's what's next for Patrick Mahomes. And it's going to tick some people off. The other thing that I'm seeing is no matter the stats, no matter how good it is, there's always those people that hate on players. Same with what happened with Tom Brady. You can look at his Super Bowl wins. You can look at his career stats. You'll always get those guys that are like, he's not that good. He's just not. He may literally be the greatest player to ever play football, but he's not that good. Come on. And I'm already seeing that with Patrick Mahomes. Oh, this dude is overrated. This guy doesn't really have what it takes. To me, at this point, though, I don't know if I've ever seen, maybe the kind of the same with Tom Brady. When there's people that hate on Tom Brady, and they can't give me a reason other than he was with the Patriots and was caught in scandal deflating footballs, I'm like, okay, I'm done talking to you. Now it's the same people with Mahomes. Oh, he won the Super Bowl and he was the MVP and he's already been MVP of the league and he's thrown for 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns in one season. But he's overrated. If that is really your argument, feel free to never talk about sports again. You've lost your sports card. I am revoking it and it is mine. But I am seeing that on social media. I'm seeing it everywhere now because all of a sudden this dude is the face of the league. Which, I'm going to be honest, never thought I'd ever say that somebody else was the face of the league when Tom Brady was still in the NFL. Because he is. And that might be the number one game I'm looking forward to all season. I can't wait for week 1 when the Bucs face the Saints. But other than that, when the Bucs face the Chiefs this year and it's Mahomes versus Brady, I can't wait. I'm looking forward. That's one of the ones I'm circling on the calendar. Get hyped. One more positive to end the show for everybody. This is another important positive for pro sports. You think pro sports aren't coming back? How about this? 346 players tested in the NBA. 0 positive coronavirus tests in the bubble. Wow. Sports are back. Sports are back. Even the NBA, who is still doing this ridiculous bubble idea and allowing employees to come in and out, are finding ways to have 0 positive tests. That's big time with them about to start back up. NHL, 2. NBA, 0. OU, 1. Let me go down the list. It is impressive. I think the teams and players realize that, hey, we are for sure taking this serious because we want sports back as much as anybody else. And they're proving that. Notre Dame, 2. Go down the list. We are getting there. Regardless of what you read or hear, sports are back. And very, very soon, we'll be talking about actual live sports here on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network. This has been the Afternoon Sports Drive. I'm Patrick Wheeler. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Jason Elmquist will be back tomorrow. Same time, 3 to 5. Of course, you can always catch us again on the Triple Play Sports Radio app. I encourage you to go download that, do that, and you will be happy that you did. The Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. I'm Patrick Wheeler. Have a great Monday, everybody.